Hello guys, and welcome to my review of the Tesla Model 3. Tesla were kind enough to lend me a Model 3 long range, and I just want to take you through that. Unfortunately, a bit of my footage had the sound absolutely destroyed because of wind noise. Like some of the internal shots and stuff just got messed up, and just the equipment I've got is great for sort of studio stuff, but it's not very good for the car review, so I really need to invest in that. I can only invest if you keep investing in me, so please give the video a thumbs up and keep watching. Don't worry folks, it gets better than this very quickly. This is the car that Tesla lent me. I picked it up in Heathrow, drove up to my friends in Birmingham, and then drove back the next day. I also went off the motorway and did some back roads and A roads and B roads to get a real good feel for the car, and did quite a bit of town driving as well. 0-60 on this one's about 4.2, a claimed range of 344 miles. Right folks, so here we are driving the mean streets of Birmingham. Henley Crescent at the moment, not exactly mean streets I must admit. So driving along here like 28 miles an hour just through a bit of traffic. This is a very pleasant car. It drives just like any other car, except for in two respects. So one, you've got that hard engine braking, so you can do one pedal driving. So if I just take my foot off the accelerator now, it slows as if you're braking, as if you're using the brake pedal, but it's engine braking. So the engine braking means A, you're not using your brake pads up, but B, it's using that energy to regenerate the battery, which is a good thing in an electric car, I think you'll agree. But in terms of the way the car handles, it handles much like any other car. It's actually a really nice driving position. The steering wheel's nice and chunky. It's a nice feeling steering wheel. The actual steering feel, so this is something that's, I think I'm quite sensitive to. If a car feels too firm or too soft, like my BMW, for example, feels slightly too light for me on the steering wheel. And this is just right. It's nice and firm without being hard to turn, but it's very responsive. I mean, tiny little adjustments in the wheel result in very quick motion of the car, so it's very, very responsive to drive. The sat nav in this car, by the way, is an absolute joy. There'll probably be a longer video on the infotainment system, and I'll cut in a few highlights of it into this one, but it really is a joy. It's Google Maps. I don't know, once again, why more manufacturers don't just use Google Maps. It's super responsive. I've got satellite imagery turned on, and it's just so unbelievably responsive, especially now I've been driving for a couple of minutes, so all the maps are loaded in, and it's just so simple to use. The search functionality is brilliant. It's essentially Google. It's got autopilot on it, so it's not steering for me, this autopilot, but it is braking for me. So we've just come up to some traffic lights, the car's slowed down in front of me, and the car's come to almost a complete stop. It's now pulling away again. It watches the traffic lights, so on the screen here you can see the traffic lights. It will bring you to a complete stop at traffic lights, which is all a bit freaky feeling, but very cool. And yeah, it really just feels like a very assured, comfortable drive. Lots of comments about build quality on Teslas. This one is a press car, and they have lent it to me knowing I'm doing a car review with it. But I have to say, it seems very, very well screwed together. No rattles in it at all. All the panels fit really nicely. With this particular one, there are absolutely no issues. I'm not saying that there's never any build quality issues on Teslas, because clearly there have been, but maybe they've improved that now. One thing I will say on this car, the ride quality is not what I thought it would be. And on the motorway, there's actually a lot of tyre noise and wind noise. I must admit, I thought you'd be travelling in complete silence in this car, even at motorway speed. And that combined with the suspension being overly firm, I would say. Probably the big wheels don't help. You certainly wouldn't want any bigger wheels than you get on this long range version. And you know, I'm feeling every little bump in the road in this, which I really didn't expect, especially when you consider I've just come out of a BMW with 19-inch wheels, low profile tyres and M Sport suspension. So to be completely honest, I feel slightly let down by the ride quality. I thought it would be a bit softer, a bit more refined maybe, and the wind and tyre noise is much higher than I thought it would be. maybe they could improve the soundproofing. I guess this huge glass roof, which is great by the way, and it lets in loads of light into the cabin. I mean, it feels lovely in here. The light coming in is great, but maybe a downside of that is it lets a bit more noise into the cabin. Battery consumption so far has been really good. The acceleration in it, which obviously is the headline party trick for these things, it is ridiculous. I'll just wait for something to get alongside me. So out here I'm doing 48 miles an hour, and then I'm just going to do this, and it's just, I mean, it's really quite jarring if you're not expecting it. And a couple of times, because it's so weird, but the power delivery is absolutely instant, so there's no build up to it, and if you just tap the accelerator a bit too hard, you do just take off, and that takes some getting used to. It really does, even though you know that the accelerator is going to be lively. Just the way it delivers the power is so completely alien to anyone that's driven an internal combustion engine car that I can't quite put it into words. And I mean, if you floor it away from traffic lights or something, I mean, you are thrown back into your seat. And don't forget that, guys, this is the long range version, it's not the performance one. So 0 to 60 in this is 4.3 seconds. I think in the performance one it's 3.1. Significantly quicker than this, and I cannot personally imagine something that delivers power more aggressively than this. I've only had it in standard mode, I haven't had it in any crazy mode or anything. Another thing I'll say, yesterday I got it on a long stretch dual carriageway without another car on it, and I floored it just for a couple of seconds and then braked quite hard, and it's really difficult to judge your stopping distance because you're not really aware, although you can read it on a screen, you don't have that feeling of the speed you're travelling. There is quite a lot of recalibration that needs to happen in your mind if you're going to drive one of these things in any way aggressively. But honestly, if you drive the car sensibly, you're not going to have any problems at all. On the road, on the motorway, again, it's great. It is a bit noisier than I expected. It is a little bit jittery over bumps and stuff, just because I guess low profile tyres and the suspension's obviously quite firm. I would like it to be a bit softer on the motorway, and I'd like it to be a bit quieter on the motorway, which I never thought I'd be saying about an electric car, but I am. I'm just joining the motorway now, and I'm going to slow right down. There's nothing behind me for quite a while, and I'm just going to give it the beans as I join the motorway, because there's a massive gap to my right. It's just unbelievable how the thing picks up. The all-wheel drive as well means it just absolutely plants itself to the road, and it can deliver every bit of that power that it produces directly to the road. I mean, it is fantastic. I guess part of having that firm suspension is because it's just delivering so much power, and putting it down and everything else, they need it to be fairly firm, just to make the car a bit more controllable, I guess. And don't get me wrong, at no point do you feel not in control of the car, but the acceleration is just so insane that you really need to recalibrate the way you drive. Like, if I was pulling out pulling out to join a motorway and it didn't have a huge gap, you know, I might have to accelerate quite hard to do that in my car. And in every internal combustion car, you know, you're going to accelerate reasonably hard to pull out and join fast moving traffic. You need to change the way you do that in this, or you're going to get yourself in trouble. It is bonkers, the speed. And you can watch all the videos you want for people doing 0 to 60 tests and everything else, but until you've felt it and experienced it, you really cannot imagine it. Because even if you got in a combustion engine car with the same 0 to 60 time, it's going to deliver the power in a very different way and going to have a very different feel to it. So on this journey I've got 91 miles to go, and it's saying I've got 240 miles of range. So I should arrive at destination with about 145, 150 miles of range left. And we'll just see how that works out in the real world. I'm also going to pull into the services again and just see what the charger availability is like. I'm not going to charge today, but I'm just going to see what the availability is like. One thing yesterday at Warwick Services, they had 8, I think, Tesla superchargers, but standard car chargers, I think they had 2. I mean, it is ridiculous. It's a big service station on a very busy motorway. It's on the M40, and I think they've got 2 EV chargers, and then obviously they've got the Tesla superchargers, but it's just not enough, is it? It really isn't. That sound system in the car is really good, no problems with that at all. It's probably better than I expected it to be. Overall, having seen a number of reviews on these cars over the years, I think the overall quality and feel of quality, like that perceived quality, so the feel you get for the car when you're inside it, is much better than I expected it to be. I'd almost kind of expected the car to feel a little bit cheap on the inside. I've been in Model S's and stuff, and they didn't feel cheap to me at all. They felt like premium cars. But the way people have discussed the Model 3, I almost expected it to feel a bit like a budget car inside, and it just doesn't. And it doesn't feel like a budget car to drive at all. It feels like a very good car. If you're going to compare this to my BMW 4 Series, which is 5 years old, the BMW is a bit plusher inside, but the simplicity of this car is just fantastic. The fact that everything is on there, I thought would be a real turn off, but it's not. I've even got volume knob, but it's here. It's not over here, it's here. And the fact that you have to go to the screen for stuff like the aircon and what have you, I'm not too bothered about, because the voice commands are so good. I just hit this button here and say set temperature, set temperature to 21 degrees. And that's it, it's done. So you don't need to go diving through the menu all the time, because the voice commands are so good. Well, if I get the opportunity here, I'm going to do a little 0 to 60 just on the slip road. So if there's nothing behind me. Right. 1, 2, 3, go. Whew. Actually rattles the inside of your brain. It's incredible, really. I see, if you accelerate that hard too often in this car, you'd give yourself a headache. Too many EV reviews just focus on the fact it's an EV, and most of them are done by EV channels or people that are completely invested in EV. I'm not. I just want things that make sense. So for the drive inside of this alone, would I buy it? Yes. The fact it's an EV, does that make me more or less likely to get it? Well, less really, because I do lots of long journeys and range anxiety is a big thing for me. I've mentioned it in some of my other videos, but I feel like EV technology and battery technology is moving at a rate of knots. And I think the moment the new version of this comes out and it does 450 miles of range or something, and it's a second quicker and whatever else they do to it, I think the used value of the old ones, particularly as you're going to get some battery degradation as well, and battery degradation can be worse than they advertise, and possibly the cost of a new one will come down as well because of the way technology's moving and economies of scale and everything else. So none of us have a crystal ball. It may be that that doesn't happen, and these things hold their money like they have done so far, which has been exceptionally well. But it could mean that your 3 or 4 years of ownership of that car become very, very expensive because you've got to get out of it at the end. Where with a lease, you know what you're getting into up front. So personally, I would lease one of these cars, and I would absolutely lease one. And having had this car for a couple of days now, I'd be very tempted by that. The car doesn't take itself too seriously. What's going on here on the screen, where it's tracking all the traffic and traffic lights and stuff, it's beyond impressive. It's just fantastic. The level of technology in this car, and the way it's delivered in quite a simplistic and fairly user-friendly way, it really is good, and I can see why these are the most popular car in the UK. If you're in two minds about buying an EV before you watch this video, remain in two minds about it. The infrastructure is still not brilliant, and if you do regular long journeys, you really need to consider if an EV is the right thing for you. If you're using it around town and just for a commute every day, it's an absolute no-brainer. Get an EV. But if you are doing long journeys, it's a difficult one, and it needs a lot of thought and consideration. If you just want a great car that can do occasional long journeys, goes like stink when you want it to, has got phenomenal technology, and I've got to say the best infotainment system I've ever experienced, buy a Tesla Model 3 or a Model S or a Model X if you've got lots of money. If you like to read a lot about cars and you spend a small fortune on car magazines, or you've got other different hobbies and you spend money on magazines cost an absolute fortune now, and you know, your bin's about that big, so it's difficult to get rid of them. Check out Readly. Right now, at the time I'm recording this video, there's a 2-month free trial, and it is completely free, and you can cancel at any time within that, and you won't pay a penny. And then if you keep Readly past the trial, it's £8 a month, and it's basically the Netflix of magazines. You've got all the magazines and news from all over the world. You can read them on your phone, your tablet, you name it, you can do it, even on your computer screen. So we've got the charger here. I'm just going to press that button and it opens up the little charging port, which is very cool, isn't it? I like things like that because I'm a sad man. That appears to be charging at this stage, but let me have a look. Okay, so I'm just going to the app, the Tesla app, and it tells me that it's charging. I must admit, that was a hell of a lot easier than I was expecting. Having seen lots of things of people struggling to get their car to charge, I found that super easy. So well done, Tesla, on making your own chargers very easy to use. One thing I will say here is there are only 2 free spaces. I'm at Warwick Services. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chargers, I think, and only 2 of them are free. So a few takeaways from this. The first one is the boot size is fantastic. You've got that boot in the back, and then the front, that little extra space in the front where the engine would normally be in a car, is really, really usable. I mean, I stuck 2 really quite decent sized rucksacks in there, and it swallowed them up. It's absolutely fine. So that's really good. Rear legroom in the back's good, although getting in and out of the car at the back is not fantastic. But rear legroom in the back's very good, and it's really comfortable for your passengers, to be fair. Yeah, super practical car. In terms of the range, when I got back to Tesla, it had about 120 miles left on it of range. At the start of the journey, it was sort of forecasting I'd end up with about 140, 150 miles of range left. So it didn't perform as well as it thought it would, which is not a massive surprise. And I did just drive back fairly sensibly, like, you know, normal motorway speeds, nothing crazy at all. And by that point I'd stopped putting my foot down like an idiot every 2 seconds as I did the previous day, because you know, I'd grown up a bit. But when you're starting off with that claim 344, if you end up getting 280 out of it, I think that's quite realistic. Maybe 270, 280 is quite realistic. And as we saw, when I just did a short charge on the car, it really improved the power quite quickly. So I used the little free dB meter app on my phone. I used the same one for both tests. Obviously, around town, the Tesla is really completely silent. It's really, really quiet when you're driving along in it. But I did a little test with the dB meter in the Tesla at 70, and then a bit later in the BMW at 70. And it's not an exact science, this, because I was on different stretches of road and the weather conditions might have been slightly different. And I'm just going to put the 2 screenshots here of the dB meter, and you can see for yourself. Just look at the difference in average dB. It's not a huge amount, but I think a lot of people will be shocked that the electric car is actually noisier out on the open road than the BMW, which is a petrol car. I'm not saying it's a fault, I'm just saying it's something to be aware of. Massive thanks to Tesla for loaning me the car, and thanks a lot to Tesla for just giving me the car and not asking anything of me whatsoever. They didn't ask me for any points that I particularly needed to hit in the review, and they literally just let me have the car to do what I want with. So massive thanks to Tesla for that. The whole experience at Tesla was really good, just very, very simple. Went in, do you want us to show you anything? Here you go, goodbye. It was great. Please guys, please do give the video a thumbs up, and please continue to support the channel. There will be more car reviews coming, but there's also going to be some new car leasing stuff coming, so keep an eye out for that. The channel's grown quite a lot lately, but I still need your support in lots of different ways, so please keep using my Amazon link. Please consider that Readly trial, and please give me a thumbs up.